Hey guys, welcome to anyone that's new, welcome back to anyone that's watched a bit of my stuff. So today we are taking a look at another cool custom build that I did. This is probably one of the more interesting, fun, unique builds that I've ever done. I'm not really a mini ITX guy, I don't normally do these, but I have absolutely fallen in love with the Phanteks Evolv Shift, which is what we have here. I just love the way this case looks. I love this case. I would have one of my own machines in this case. It's just, I have expansion requirements that I could build a standalone machine in a case like this that could just be a machine in a case like this, but I'd love to have something like this. I don't know what I would do with the thing. I actually built one a little while back and I didn't know what to do with the thing, so I eventually ended up selling it. But if I were to build my system, my own personal system, as a mini ITX, this would be the one. So this is going to be a system overview on the specs, but I'm also going to tear it down a little bit and show you guys some of the cool, unique custom stuff that I did, and maybe even give some people some ideas of some custom stuff that you can do with the Phanteks Evolv Shift. So what this is this is a, it is a gaming desktop, but I would characterize it as a light gaming desktop. This is not a heavy machine. I would characterize this as a powerful home computer or a light gaming desktop. I was shooting for thermals, and I was shooting for budget. I wanted it quiet. I wanted it reasonably cool, and the only way to do it with this particular case was to go with a fairly cool set of components. So this is a 7th gen i5 7500 with 8 gigs of RAM, DDR4 RAM, and a 4 gig NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. Anyone that's been watching my stuff probably has seen some of my demo videos for this system going online. I'll probably do a few more now that it's fully built, just to make sure thermals are still what I wanted. It's got kind of a cool super micro motherboard in it. I have a source that I get these in bulk, and they're essentially server grade boards intended to take consumer grade chips. So my guess is, I mean, there's always special cases, but that should translate into higher reliability. There's also higher OS support for if you wanted to do something. Well, I haven't looked at the specifics, but when you're looking at stuff like Linux, or you're looking at older OSs, driver support on these server boards is a little bit better than driver support on your standard, you know, this is a i5 7500, so you would be looking at Z170, Z270. So let's say I did like a Strix Z270, which are great boards, but let's say I did a Strix board, you probably wouldn't get quite as much OS compatibility on something on something like a consumer grade board, a gaming type board. So I'm going to tear this down, and I'll even show you guys how I tear it down. So let's get into that. Come over here. Try to figure out how I want to do this first. Okay, so before I shut it off, I'm going to show what the other side looks like. So I did do RGB in this, kind of a cheap RGB kit, but it's your standard 3-fan remote type setup. I think I have standard RGB remote. So the kind of interesting thing, I call this a hybridization of the Phanteks. Normally you buy these with either a glass panel on each side or a fabric mesh panel on each side. I like to do it this way though. I like glass on the display side, and then where you've got your CPU and all your other stuff, and then I did the fabric on the video card side, which this particular video card doesn't need this. I could do the glass, but if somebody upgrades their video card later, it's certainly if you put, especially like a 3-fan, like an Asus Strix card or an EVGA or a Gigabyte, something like that. the mesh panel will make a big difference, like a huge difference, like a difference between usability and not kind of difference. So definitely consider purchasing one of these if you can find one. I've seen quite a few people do this, and I believe this one, the original owner that I bought this case from, had already done this. Okay, so let's pull this off. And actually, let's shut this off now. RGB should go off once it's turned off. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna unplug. Okay, so I'm gonna take the back panel off first, and you unscrew them. They have screws inside in here. You'll see them when you're using the case. You can kind of see that right there. Just thumb screws, and the panels just pop. They pull upwards and come off. So this particular card is the Gigabyte version. It's a nice, no additional power required card. For this particular build, it was kind of the perfect option. Kind of paid more for it than I really wanted to, but I needed a card for the build, so it's like, well, whatever. See if I can get this a little closer here for you guys to see. Okay, kind of give you a better view there. I need to get a second camera so I can just have multiple angles pre-set up. Okay, and then okay, so first of all, looking at this, this particular video card isn't very long, so it was pretty easy to do the install. But the cool thing with the way I did this, and I always suspected from the first time I saw one of these that you would be able to do this. I didn't know until I actually did it. So the actual manufacturer, the original way that this case is set up, it's intended to take an SFX power supply, which they're not quite as common. I have so many of the standard size ones on hand. I wanted to make this a little bit easier by using a standard. So yes, indeed, this is a full standard size power supply. The only thing that you're losing, because you can still fit a full size video card in here, it'll still go all the way down. There's plenty of space for it. The only capability you're losing by me doing that is you would not be able, I mean, maybe if you got really freaking creative, you could do it. But I would say, generally speaking, doing it this way, you're not going to be able to upgrade to a full custom liquid loop, which, if you're buying this from me, you're not going to be upgrading to a full custom liquid loop. But in theory, that is the only thing you should lose by doing this. Because normally, you would have all this space here and back there where this power supply is for your custom loop components. And then I end up I hid all the cables down there. So let's take the sides off. So these ones are the same, but the screws are mounted a little bit differently on these. They're on the sides here. So you unscrew, and then they do the exact same thing. They pull up. I think they pull up. Oh, I must not have gotten it all the way. I missed one. Okay. Did I miss one? Oh wait. Did I do it the wrong way? Oh, no, it's just tighter than I thought. So yeah, they pull up. It takes a little more force than I was expecting. So on that side, I did a few things. The RGB controller is mounted right there. So can you see that? Oh yeah, you can see that real good. Okay, so RGB controller is mounted right there. I did use zip tie. For anyone that hasn't done a build like this before, do not be afraid to use zip ties. I do it all the time. You can use them for everything, and they're actually sometimes just as good of a mounting method as original factory stuff. But if you're doing a custom build like this, like the other option, this controller came with this big square of double stick foam, but I actually think this is better. I think it took up less space, and it's probably more secure than a double stick foam application would have been. I mean, it's not super tight, but it's not going anywhere. And then I have a blowout fan here and an intake fan here, which should be fine because the case is actually chambered, so that fan blows into that chamber, this fan blows out of that chamber. However, in this case, the RGB is or the fans are really visual. They're not really there for cooling. This build, it's a very, very, very cool set of parts. It really doesn't need any crazy cooling, but I did want to go RGB because most people that are buying a custom build like this want it to look shiny and pretty. It's what people want. So I did want to go RGB with it just for that reason alone. Okay, and then let's look at the other one. Same exact thing. The screws are just, the screws screw in. For these sides, the screws screw into it. They're not attached to it. You put the panel in place and then the screws screw into it. So we pull those. Oh, and then obviously, as you can see, I did double stick foam the SSD to the back of the power supply. Okay, so let's pull that up. Same thing here. Comes off. Okay, so on this side, I did our 500 gig 2.5. Again, I did use zip ties. This particular thing, it's actually set up for a 3.5 in this area, but because of how much stuff that I put in this, it wasn't really reasonable to try to do a 3.5, so I went with the 2.5. Again, it's very solid. It's not going anywhere. Again, do not be afraid to use that. It's even got holes. I actually used, so this has interior mounting for 2.5s, but because of, again, the custom stuff I did, it wasn't really the right way to go to use the interior mounting for the 2.5, so I mounted it in the 3.5 space right here, but I did mount it inside the caddy, so the zip ties aren't directly like pressing against the hard drive or anything like that, which is one of the things I wanted, because if I had done it just directly, it would have had the PCB of the hard drive sitting directly against the metal of the case, and then you would have had the zip ties potentially pressing on the top of the hard drive, which I was trying to avoid. Okay, so then the last panel that we're going to take off comes off again, the same thing, some thumb screws on the top. These are just, well, actually, no, I think these are how they attach it to the metal back. I was going to say they were just visual, but I think that's how they attach the glass to the back. Let's see. Come off? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think that's how they attach. Oh, yeah, because there's screws screwing the glass into that. Okay, so pretty standard stuff. EVGA 500 watt power supply with the power necessary. I mean, I can't see somebody upgrading something like this to say, like, I don't know, 3060, 3070. I can't really see somebody doing that. I see this more as the type of build somebody would go out and pick up, like, I don't know, maybe a 1070, 1060, maybe like a 2060, something like that for. Just because it is a budget build. You certainly could. I mean, you can upgrade this to 32 gigs of RAM. You could put a 7700K chip in here. You can put like a 3070, maybe 3080. I'd probably limit it to a 3070. I don't know. I think you'd have heat issues with anything higher than that. You certainly could do all of that. I don't see this as being that build. I really built this for the budget conscious buyer who still wants most of the toys and aesthetics. So it's kind of a best of both worlds type build. So power supply here, full size, goes to the edge there. And it fits. It's wedged in there. The dimensions of the power supply are exactly the dimensions of the space. Like, exactly to the millimeter. It was kind of weird, but apparently it was a standardized size, so that's what they did. One of the side effects of the server type board, it is a green PCB. It's not kind of a nicer black, type look to it, so it doesn't quite have that gamer aesthetic to it. But like I said, I think it's going to be a more reliable build, and it was probably the perfect build for this application. I didn't go crazy. I just used the standard Intel heatsink fan just because it fit right, and for the 7500, it's a cool chip. It doesn't need crazy extra cooling, and there's not a lot of space in here for it anyway. In theory, if you wanted to do an AIO, I have mounted AIOs. I think I did one right here once. I can't remember. It's kind of weird with the tubes, because normally you can never get enough tube length, but in this particular situation, you want as short a tube length as possible. But I think you could do like what do they call it? Like a Corsair H H60i or whatever right on there, but it doesn't need it. It would be entirely a aesthetic thing if you were to do it. So yeah, I hope you guys find this interesting. For anyone curious, this is going to be I haven't decided yet. I think I'm going to try to get 380 out of it. It's a little bit on the high side compared to similar specs that I'm seeing going, but in this particular case, it's just such a... Most of the people I see doing builds like this usually want a lot more than that for them. Because this isn't really a spec build. This is kind of an aesthetic build. You don't really buy something like this for the specs. It's decent specs, it's okay specs, but that's not really what I was aiming for here. This was a pretty build with okay specs for somebody who that's what they wanted. They wanted a pretty build that would run maybe Fortnite for their kid or something like that. So anyway, I hope you guys find this interesting and informative on the build. And if you like stuff like this, I'm going to start doing more and more of this kind of stuff. So like and subscribe to the channel, and you're going to start seeing more of this kind of stuff. I think I'm even going to do I've got a set of parts. I'm going to have a couple of sets of parts, and I'm just going to do builds for the purpose of getting them on video and then take them apart and do something else with them. I may even start just randomly buying cases to review and do full builds in just for the purpose of showing them. But again, I hope you guys find this interesting and informative, and thanks for watching the video.